Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be painting these mutants and I'm going to be trying a new skin recipe.
Gruffy Crow.
So my normal skin recipe that I've been using pretty much constantly since I started this channel relies around these P3 paints. And I really like this colour. I need to try and find something similar to this colour because I use this for wood, I use it for skin, I use it for a bunch of stuff. The problem is this is completely empty. And these P3 paints are getting harder and harder to get hold of at the moment. So I decided to change my skin recipe to something a little bit easier to get hold of. So I had a little look around on the internet and this rat skin flesh kind of came up as a sort of alternative. Now they are nothing alike to my eye. That is not a colour that I'd normally pick for doing sort of fleshy colours, I don't think. But that is what we're going to use on these mutants as the sort of a base colour rather than what I'd normally go for there. And to replace the Midland flesh, I have bought some Kislev Flesh. They do look a little bit more similar, and this does have a slight, to my eye, more of a yellow tinge, which should sort of bring it in line with that one a bit. Then we'll go over my trusty Reichland Flesh shade that I like, and then I've already been using this a little bit for a while now, and this is Flayed One Flesh, and I can use this as a sort of top highlight. So they're the sort of colours we're going to end up with. So these aren't the only releases from the Imitation of Life January package. There was a guy with a big old gun. I'm going to do him in a sort of grey colour scheme, I think, because he's a bit more sort of reptilian. And then there is a fully sort of reptilian girl. So she'll get a sort of nice green paint job, I think. And then there was a little crocodile boy, which I've already painted. I think he's come out quite nice. So these are just the ones I'm going to give a sort of more generic human skin tone to. So big mutant-y guy here. He was quite cool, he came with some different arms and stuff. We've got this fully mutated mutant here. Got the mutant psyker. Got a guy here, once again a bit more sort of standard looking, sort of a few extra eyes. And a guy with an extra arm, all kitted up with like military gear. He's even got some little horns and stuff. And these are going to look pretty cool alongside my sort of various other mutants that I've collected from around the internet, from Judge Dredd games and other bits and pieces. Anyway, so I'm going to start this the way I start a lot of these sorts of projects. We've got a sort of makeup brush with some nice soft ends. And I'm going to start with my base paint. So this is a lot lighter than I would normally start with for something like this. Let's see how it looks on something as fleshy as this guy. So not as instantly unappealing as I thought. And it's a Games Workshop base paint, so it goes on, especially with these nice big fluffy brushes, real smooth, real thin. So I'm going to get them all base coated like this, and we'll take another look. So now they're all base coated, I'm going to go in with this Kislev Flesh. I'm going to switch to a sort of more standard brush, also GW for a change. So this is a fresh pot, so let's see, it seems a bit thick. Let's test what the coverage looks like out of the pot. I don't tend to like Citadel layer paints. See, we get this sort of streaking. It doesn't like to go on thin. Okay, so we are firing up the wet palette with a fresh sheet on. So I've got a generous amount of this on the palette. I've already added a bit of water, and obviously the water from below will help keep this nice and thin. Let's try that again. Yeah, that's going on a lot nicer now. So I'm going to start by just sort of going for the super tall highlights, just the very raised edges with a layer of this. And then once we've got an area where all those bits are done, I'm then going to sort of get some more of the, take a bit more paint off my brush and sort of overbrush everything, just leaving the first colour in the sort of recesses. Which what that'll do is, because this is kind of transparent because we've got it watered down, will mean that the raised bits that I painted first will essentially get a second coat and everything else will be slightly lighter. And I think that's going to be the trick with this, just sort of build it up coat at a time. Even so, I would say that this Games Workshop paint is not as smooth as the P3 paint I'm used to. So I'm going to get these guys all painted up in the Kislev Flesh and we'll see what they look like then. Okay, that went quite well. We've got something I quite like here. These guys are coming out an interesting colour. Said once again, it's not something I'd have sort of picked initially myself, but it's actually a lot sort of bronzier and outdoorsier. This might be end up being a skin tone I use for stuff like this, sort of mutants and things, where I want that kind of more bronzy look, and then I find a different sort of recipe for sort of more indoorsy types. So more or less following my old sort of technique, I'm going to now give these guys a wash in the flesh shade. Now, when I used to do this phase with my old scheme, at this point they'd be looking, the models would be looking kind of cold, and this would really sort of bring the sort of life and the heat in a bit, really warm those colours up. But because these colours are already kind of yellowed, it's not having quite as transformative an effect. Okay, these are looking pretty fab. I'm going to have to leave these for a few hours for all these washes to dry. Okay, so they need an overnight to dry, but I've left them more like a month. But yeah, the dry colour is pretty cool. It's a little bit more yellow than my sort of standard recipe. I think that's something we can work with. Got some good sort of gradients going on. It's nice and matte. So we've got some more of the Kislev Flesh. I'm going to go back in with quite a harsh highlight to start with on the sort of raised areas, like I've done around this face. Being careful not to sort of cover up all the nice shades and stuff we've done. And this is probably going to be one of the longest stages in the whole model. So I'm just going to get on with this, put some TV on, and see if I can do the whole squad. Oh, sorry, I will mention that once I've got the really harsh highlights done, I will take some of this Kislev over to the wet palette and do a slightly more chilled one. So this is going to be for larger areas, possibly not the best model to example, but say we start off with something sort of really harsh like that, like a nice top layer on these sort of muscles down here. I then take a more watered down version and maybe just make that a bit softer. It's kind of hard to describe, it's just a sort of process that I just add, and then using these sort of thin down layers I can kind of build it up, but with those kind of solid highlights in first to sort of provide like a backbone. Alright, so I'm a little bit happy with the way these are coming out. Still a bit yellow, but we can't really do much about that now. So I'm going to try some flayed one flesh as well. Once again, I'm going to get that nice and thin down so it's almost transparent, and I'm just going to use that on the toppest highlights. This brush isn't really suitable. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. Alright, so I've always found that these skin tones can always look a little bit more ropey than they actually are until we get everything else filled in. I'm not going to do anything out of the ordinary for the rest of this. I'm just going to do a quick paint job as possible, try and get these guys sort of tabletop plus in the get a really good idea of what this skin looks like in context, as it were. Okay, I've rushed through these guys and painted all the other bits in. Tried to stick to a kind of drab colour scheme with just little spots of colour here and there. Could definitely have done a more detailed job. I basically just wanted to see what the skin tone looked like, sort of in context, as it were. These two are probably the best examples because they've got the most skin on show still. See if we can try and represent what it actually looks like in real life. And I think they've come out quite well. This is a lot more yellow than I'd probably normally go for. Certainly got more yellow tones. I don't hate it. It's definitely a recipe I'm going to use again. But I think I'd prefer a sort of reddier, paler skin tone sort of method, I think. This is a bit sort of too healthy and tanned for me, I think. Or just a bit too yellow. Bronze. This is another guide. So it was done in one of my previous sort of skin tone methods, and that's what I mean. It's got that kind of paler sort of look, less yellow. I think I mentioned the minis as before from Imitation of Life Miniatures, and all the relevant links will be in the description if you want to pick any of these up. I believe there's also an Etsy store where you can get actual prints of them all. As I said, I don't hate this colour scheme. I think it's worked out alright on these guys, but I will be looking to try some other things. So if you've only got any hints and tips, or you want to let me know how you do skin, or you get any good recommendations for videos, let me know down in the comments, or jump on the Discord and show me what you got. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments, maybe subscribe for more, and as ever, thanks for watching. Bye!